circle. Coming onto hands and knees, we want to bring our hands underneath our shoulders, shoulder distance apart. A little bit of space in between the knees, stacked underneath the hips. And let's start from the pelvis, moving through a really segmented cat and cow. So with the pelvis, think about tipping your tailbone out behind you. So we're pelvic tilting forward. You're feeling that low back sink down towards the mat. And then just let the low back follow. The belly button starts to drop. We start to pull the rib cage and the breastbone down towards the mat. Let the chest sink down between the shoulder blades. And lifting up through the chin, getting a little space through the throat. We'll slowly move the other direction from the chin down. So tucking the chin all the way in, rounding up through the back of the neck, push through the palms, let the space between the shoulders expand. Start to round through the mid-back, letting the low back follow to round, and then pulling the pelvis so the pubic bone pulls up towards the rib, and now the back body is really rounded. Coming back into cow, the pelvis drops, tailbone pushes out behind you. Let the low back sink down. Mid-back starts to follow. Breastbone and rib cage coming down to the mat. The shoulders sink forward, lifting up through the chin. Nice and slow-mo. Start to round through the neck. Chin rounds all the way in, starting to puff up between the shoulder blades. The mid-back rounds and lifts, the low back starts to follow. Pubic bone pulls up towards the ribs. Let's do two more. Coming in through cat, you know the flow. Dropping through the hips and the front of the body nice and slowly. Letting that back arch, coming into extension, chin lifts up. And then moving from the chin back down, starting to round. Chin flexes forward, puffing up through the shoulders, letting the shoulder blades separate, rounding through the back body. Good. Coming back into a more neutral state. So bringing the chest and the low back into a neutral spot. Hips are neutral. Take a moment, see how your wrists are doing. If there's any tension through the wrists, you can come up onto fists instead of keeping a bend through them. You're going to do a similar motion, a little bit less movement through the head and the pelvis, but much more movement happening through our center line. So think about dropping the belly button down towards the mat. Lean into the right side body, really leaning over to the right side of your mat. And then round up through the mid-back as you pull yourself back into the center of the mat. And then coming to lean into the left side of the body. Dropping the belly down towards the floor as you pull yourself back into the center. So we're moving nice and slow, but we're basically creating a barrel roll movement with our torso. So moving in that circular direction. Letting the back round, come to one side. Drop through the middle, leaning up, rounding through the back, going over to the other side. And just notice how it feels side to side. We have two sides. It doesn't mean that our experience of this movement will feel the same from one side to the next. Nice. Good leaning. You'll be doing one more complete circle. And you know your circle is complete because you end up back centered in your mat. Excuse me. Good. Okay, from this nice centered spot, let's get into a little bit of rotation. So, think about your belly button having a little laser in it. We want that laser to be pointed straight down towards the mat. And as much as possible, we want to keep our little belly button laser at the mat. We're going to start by rotating to our right. So our right hand, you can bring it up behind your head if you like, or you can even just bring it out to the side to float a little bit. And then I want you to think about pulling that right elbow behind you. So the shoulders are opening up towards the side, the right side of the mat, but the belly button stays pointed down. It's not a huge movement, and it doesn't feel terribly graceful. That's okay. Take a nice big breath all the way in here. Try to feel the ribs expand. As you exhale, pull that right hand underneath your left for a little bit of a counter twist. So now we are reaching the other way. We're letting our breath go back to normal. We are still trying to have our shoulders open to the left, but our belly button pointing down. When you're ready, nice big breath in, lift that right hand up, pull that right elbow up behind you. Belly button stays pointing down. Slight rotation through the ribs. Exhale, swoop that hand under the left, come to the left side. Taking a natural breath on this side. On your next inhale, open back out to the right. Exhale to come down. Keeping a natural breath here. We'll do one more on your next inhale, opening to the right. Exhale to come down, leaning to the left. As you lean, your right shoulder is going to drop a little bit, but again, you want to think about that pelvis, that belly button nice and level. And then just come to take both hands to the mat. Let your knees open for a moment. Toes together, knees nice and wide. Push back to a child's pose. And as you come down to your child's pose, walk your hands and head over to the left of the mat so that as you come down, there's a gentle line of pull from the right armpit back through the sides of the rib cage. And then just let your breath come to a normal pace, but imagine you can breathe into this right armpit, into this right lung only, opening up all of those little spaces between the ribs as you do. Taking a few moments to connect back into that breath. And then let's pull ourselves back up to hands and knees, nice and slow. Notice what you feel. You might feel a little more aware of that right side of the torso than the left. Coming back into your hands and knees position, let's start with our little bit of rotation. So again, put your little belly button laser straight down to the mat. Left hand, maybe it reaches for behind the head, maybe it comes out in a little cactus out to the side. Belly button stays locked in as you inhale. See if you can pull that left elbow open behind you, creating a small amount of rotation through the upper spine. Exhale, swoop that hand under the left. Belly button stays pointed down, shoulders point to the left. Let your breath return to normal here. On your next inhale, opening up to the left, trying to feel that small movement, small rotation through the shoulder. Exhale, slowly coming down, small twist to the other side. Try not to let that low back sag as you come. Inhale, stretching up, opening to the left. Exhale, sweep it down, leaning to the right. Last one, inhale, open up. Our rotation, especially through our T-spine, our mid-back, our rib cage, tends to be one of the most limited ranges of motion for people. Exhale, coming down. Beautiful. Coming to bring both hands down to the mat, letting the back settle. Toes together, knees nice and wide. Let's come down into our child's pose with hands and head over to the right. This time allowing that opening through the left side of the armpit, the rib cage, maybe even into the belly. Just focusing on dropping the breath down, allowing the body to slow down. Taking a couple deep breaths, imagining you can feel yourself breathing only into this left side of the rib cage and the lung. Maybe one more breath here. And then as you're ready, slowly peeling yourself back up onto hands and knees, and then coming through to a comfortable seat. I like to sit cross-legged. It's comfy for me. It's not always comfy for everybody else, so if legs long feels better, feel free to do that. Good. And then take a moment and just notice the shape of your pelvis. If we tend to have quite a bit of extension in the back, we can really tip the pelvis forward, having a bit of like an archedness to our back. So we want to think about just taking a moment, really go the opposite way, do a pelvic tilt, like you're pulling your pubic bone up towards your ribs, letting the low back round. And then coming to find kind of neutral. And then going the other way where we're arching our back. And then sinking back into neutral. So we're just taking a moment really to make sure we default to a neutral position and not our body's normal position. Good. Let's do a similar set of movements that we just did through the rib cage, but with gravity moving through us in this different way. So let's get the low back involved too. Let's do a little bit of gentle moving from side to side. So stretch your arms all the way tall up towards the ceiling to start. And then think about plugging your shoulder blades back onto your back. So you want to think about squeezing the arms down, giving your ears a little space to breathe. Right arm's going to reach behind you. Left arm is going to reach over for your knee because we're both cross-legged. But even if you're sitting legs long, that's okay. We're going to hang out for like one natural breath cycle on this side. And then using an inhale, sweep up to the center. Exhale is going to bring us the other way. Left hand behind us, right hand to the opposite knee. Hanging out on this side for a natural breath in. And back out. Up and over to the other side. So we're just going to slowly take one breath to move. And one breath to twist, going at your own pace. But resist the urge to speed up as we move through the process. It's a normal urge. But one we want to challenge. And as you sway from side to side, we've already done a few on each side. Just want you to notice if it feels different. Sometimes, as we do gentle movement like this, the body kind of unwinds, allows us to access the movement easier or with less feedback, or the range of motion shifts. And sometimes what's accessible to us on the first time is our experience through the whole movement. You also might notice that it feels like you have more rotation one way than the other. Without rushing, we'll do one more in each direction. And the other thing to notice is we're in a different position than when we were on hands and knees, but also with these rotations, we are not just moving the rib cage and the T-spine, we're also moving our lumbar spine. And so we get much more movement through it. Okay, good. Come back to the center. Hanging out. Sitting up nice and tall once again. Let's start with arms all the way back up overhead. Stretch super tall. Plug your right arm back down into your shoulder socket here. Left arm is going to reach all the way out towards the side, and we're going to lean over to the left until your hand finds the floor. Really push into your hand. I want you to think about making like a rainbow shape through the rib cage, through this arm. We want this nice arch. Your top right shoulder, think about tilting it behind you. We want to be nice and level side to side. It's normal to kind of round in, so we want to think about squeezing those shoulders on the back. Thinking about leaning that right hip over to the side. Similar shape than when we were in child's pose, but again, gravity is moving through us a little differently here. Now while we're here, tuck your chin all the way in. Push your breastbone back. Let your arm reach forward. So now we're coming into, it doesn't look very pretty. It's a bit of an ugly shape. Let the back body round. You're feeling that stretch come out of the side body and a little more into the right lats, into the right back. Good. Nice big inhale. Stretch yourself all the way back up to the center. Plug that left arm down into your socket. Right arm's gonna reach out to the side. I have to move over because I'll hit our very expensive TV and get in trouble. And then we're gonna lean over to the right until your hand finds the floor. And then really pushing into the left hip, the left side of the lower torso, the ribs, creating that rainbow shape, that nice big arch through the left side of the rib cage. Noticing what you feel side to side. Keeping those shoulders stacked, that left scapula pulled onto the back, that left shoulder nice and behind you and open. We've just tilted sideways into the horizontal plane here. Noticing what you feel through the side body. Tuck your chin all the way in, pull that left arm forward, let the back round. Not such a pretty shape, but feel that stretch move from the side body into the lats. It's still in the side body, but instead of being right on the sides of the body, it's more like the left back body now. Beautiful. Pulling yourself back up to the center. So we did some rotation, we did some side bending. Let's do a little bit of seated extension and flexion. So again, we did this with our cats and cows, thinking about, let's start with extension first. So thinking from your hips first, think about pushing your tailbone towards you. It's gonna pull your belly button forward. We're lifting up through the breastbone and chest and the chin. And so we're bringing our back into extension. Think about squeezing those shoulders onto your back. And then chin's gonna come back into neutral and then round all the way forward. Think about pushing the breastbone back, the shoulder blades splitting apart, rounding forward. Lean the torso back. Let the back body round like you're pushing into a wall behind you. And then you're gonna roll over your sit bones a little bit so your pubic bone pulls up towards the belly. So in flexion here, let's come back to extension. So start to roll over your sit bones. Let your belly pull forward, hips pull forward, shoulders pull back, breastbone comes forward, chin lifts, spine into extension. And then let's come to flexion, chin comes forward, puff that back body apart, shoulders separate, rounding through the back, hips pull up. One more, coming forward, opening through the front of the body. It's like your spine and tailbone are trying to get closer to each other as you come to extension. And then coming back to find a more neutral seat. Letting the back body and the spine come to neutral, and just noticing those natural curves through the spine. Just taking a moment to observe how it might feel through the low back, through the mid back, even through the shoulders.